Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to explain why similarity is perceptually given. This is an important principle to understand if you want to overcome the nominalist way of thinking about concepts. The nominalist way of thinking about concepts basically being is that we arbitrarily group things together, we do it however we want. Similarity is just something that we make up in our minds and we group things because of the similarity that we make up, and therefore our concepts are invalid. Now, this is the wrong way of thinking about concepts, because similarity is not something that we just make up in our heads, but it's also not something that is entirely real in reality itself, apart from a sensory organ. It's something that it's not intrinsic either. These things are similar because their characteristics fall in a certain range that when we perceive them, when their attributes interact with our sensory organs, they appear similar. And this appearance, it's not something that we make up in our heads. It's not a range that we set. It's a range that comes from our sense organs. It's a range that comes from our organs themselves. It's a range that comes from perception. So, in other words, this similarity is perceptually given. It's given by our identification of these, by our viewing of these existence in reality. So if we view two things as red, they might not be the exact same shade as red. Their wavelengths might not be exactly the same, but they fit in such a range that when these wavelengths interact with our sense organs, we perceive them as being similar, even if they're not exactly the same. Now, how is this range defined? I don't know. That's a question for science to answer. And it's not something that we simply come up with in our heads either, because these things appear similar perceptually. We don't form concepts before we discover similarity. We form concepts after we discover similarity, because similarity is something that's necessary in forming concepts. We need to group things together that appear similar and in certain measurements, and that appear similar in certain measurements, and omit the other measurements basically. That's not the perfect formulation of how we form concepts, but it's basically integrating things, identifying things, integrating them together, omitting their measurements. Basically grouping things that have a similar range in a certain conceptual common denominator, and then basically dropping the other measurements. Now, this certain conceptual common denominator might be, in this case, color. So if a thing is in a certain range of colors, we perceive that thing as similar, and that similarity is perceptually given, and then we form a concept by dropping the specific measurement of the amount of redness, or the specific measurement, and we just focus on that similarity. We abstract away and focus on that similarity. And that the important thing here is that similarity is perceptually given. It's not something that we just make up. It's not a range that we come up with conceptually. No, this is something that is perceptually given by the facts of our interaction with our of reality's interaction with our sense organs. This is something that is true, and it's for science to answer, because it's not something that we just come up with rationalistically or arbitrarily. It's simply a fact of existence, and science can go and look at that and see why certain ranges appear similar or why certain ranges appear different. But it's not for philosophy to answer why specifically it does that. That's more a question for science, why our sense organs work a certain way. The primary principle here is that similarity is perceptually given, and that is a fairly important principle here with regards to how we form concepts. But I think that's all I have to say for today, so thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you all in the next video. Peace.